Hi everyone. Hi, this is Sunil here, Sunil Mohanty. So I'll be the trainer, and today we'll start the first class. Okay, so before we, I think there was a demonstration class. Some people have attended and some people did not attend. So anyway, that's fine. You can go through the recorded demonstration later. But today we are going to start on the architecture. We'll try to understand how the architecture of Informatica MDM is designed. But before we start, let's first of all let's try to understand two things very clearly. First is there's a lot of confusion that MDM and data warehouse, they look like they are similar. Sometimes some people say that, I mean, MDM is similar to a data warehouse. So first of all, let me speak about that. And second thing, let me speak about uh, Informatica MDM and other MDMs. Okay, so let's try to understand what is Informatica MDM, difference between Informatica MDM and other MDMs. Just one second. Okay, so first thing here is, see, in a data warehouse, what is a data warehouse? Data warehouse, the purpose of data warehouse is to store uh, data from transactional systems in order to meet the analytics, or you can say business intelligence requirements. That's the main purpose. So when we say business intelligence requirements, then we are talking about measures. We are talking about things that can be added up. For example, the total profit of the organization, or the profit for the quarter, or how many products the customer so purchased, or how much profit a particular sector made. So we are talking about those kind of things basically, okay, when we talk of a data warehouse. But in an MDM, let's be frank, in an MDM we do not care about, there's no concept of measures. Okay, so there's no measure, whereas data warehouse is actually based on the measures. Okay, data warehouse is based on the just one second. Some people, so you are able to hear my voice, right? I'm getting message from other people. Hello.
Yes, Sunil.
Okay, okay,
Yes,
that's fine. That's
yes,
fine.
Sunil.
Okay, okay. Because some people are complaining that, so I just wanted to check. Just one second. Okay, okay. I think you're unable to see my screen, so I did not share it. So I just said it now. Okay, okay. Now it's fine. Okay, so data warehouse is basically about measures. So in data warehouse, the most successful model is dimensional modeling, where the whole thing is framed around dimensions and facts. Whole thing is centered around dimensions and facts. So basically, this is about measures. Whereas in MDM, there's no concept of measures. It's basically the static data that we are interested in. We are interested in, for example, let's say there could be many types of domain. For example, if your organization wants to implement customer or product or store. So in case of a customer, basically we are interested about information of customer. Information of customer means what's the address, what's the contact of the customer, what's the date of birth, what is the SSN number of the customer. We are interested in that. And if it's a product domain, then we'll be interested in basically what's the product ID, what's the product number, what's the registration ID, those kind of things that you'll learn later when in this third class we'll talk about the data model of MDM, where we'll learn details. Okay, but I'm just doing a high level comparison between these two, so that there should not be any confusion between a data warehouse and MDM. Okay, so that should be completely clear. Now coming to the second point, what's the main difference between Informatica MDM and other MDM? See, there could be thousands of differences. Okay, so if you compare each tool, each feature, then you will see that lot of things are different, but the main difference is Informatica multi-domain edition. Most of other companies, they do not have a real multi-domain edition. So the edition is basically single domain. For example, let's say if you want to implement customer domain and you want to implement product domain and store domain in the same installation, then that is not possible. That's not possible with most of the other products. But with Informatica MDM, that's there, that's already built into the heart. So that is the main difference. Okay, now let's jump into the architecture part. Okay, let's try to understand the architecture now. See, I already told you what is MDM. What is MDM? MDM is basically master data management, which is nothing but identifying duplicate instances of the customer and merging them. Okay, for example, I also showed you this diagram. Okay, I'll just refer to this diagram once again. See, in this diagram, you can see there are the customer John Smith is present in prepaid database, postpaid database, internet database. Okay, and basically the names are different. The custom name of the customer is different in different databases, whereas the customer is the same. It's John in prepaid, John Smith in postpaid, and in internet database his name is John K. Smith. So here basically master data is all about identifying this customer as the same customer and then merging them, or you can say consolidating them, to create a single version of the truth. And the first line that you see, that is Informatica MDM Hub, that is the single version of the truth, or you can say that is the master data that we are talking about. Okay, now remember, this whole process, the whole Informatica MDM or any MDM tool in the world does this. Okay, it's nothing more than that, nothing less than that. Okay, that's what it does. Identifies duplicate instances, merges them, and publishes to the third parties. So first of all, to identify duplicates, you first of all have to take data from different source systems, then do some mathematical calculation, and then create the master record. And then once the master record is created, send it to third party people. Okay, so now let's go back to the architecture. So basically the source systems that I talked about, the prepaid database and the postpaid databases, those are nothing but these bulbs that you see in red dots. They are nothing but the source systems. So basically they are the source systems. Remember, source systems are external to Informatica MDM. It means, I mean, it really does not matter, I mean, what is source system and how it is. Okay, so basically source system is completely external. And another important thing for you to understand is how you bring data from different source systems into the MDM area. That is also not supported by Informatica MDM. Okay, that is not supported by Informatica MDM, or any other MDM tool does not support that. Okay, so basically you would have to use an ETL tool to extract data from different source systems and then put it to the landing tables. Now this hexagon that you see here, this whole complete hexagon, when we see this hexagon, that hexagon, anything that is inside the hexagon is a part of Informatica MDM Hub. Anything that's inside it, it's part of Informatica MDM Hub. Anything that you see outside of it, it's completely outside. Okay, that has nothing to do with MDM. It means it's basically an external product. Okay, so source systems, these are the source systems, and then those source systems, the data you will extract, you will use an ETL. And okay, now first of all, how do you pull data from source systems into MDM area? Just 1 second. Okay, so basically how you extract data from this source systems into this landing area. Okay, so the technique is using an ETL. There are multiple options. You can go with an ETL if you have enough money, I mean your client has enough money, or let's say you can also use a DQ tool like IDQ, you can also use it. Or let's say your client does not have enough funding, then what they can do is they can use tools like SQL loader or PL SQL scripts or any Unix script that inserts data into an landing table area, or you can say the landing area. The landing table, what's a landing table? Landing table is the entry point to Informatica MDM. Entry point means the data that you're seeing here, the prepaid database, the postpaid database, and the internet database. All this data initially, all of this data will be loaded into the landing table area. Okay, that's the landing table area. Landing table is a physical table in Informatica MDM. It means you will create the table. I'll just show you quickly. See, this is an landing table. You would have to create this table, and then you have to create the structure and all that. Okay, and basically when you create this in the tool, a landing table named this will be created in the backend. Okay, it will be created in the backend. That's the concept. Backend means it's in the Oracle database. Okay, I'll tell you about the architecture, the server architecture, that is how the product is installed, and I mean what are the different layers that are all there. Then you will be more clear about this database when what I'm saying. But yeah, so first of all the source systems data, you pull all the source systems data and then you drop it into a single landing table. The concept here is you drop them in a single landing table. So in this case we have three source systems. So all these three source systems data will be pulled into a single landing table. Okay, and there will be a column named SRC, or you can put it any custom column you can create like SRC, that would differentiate the data, that differentiates data from different source systems. Okay, that's the main concept. The reason why we are using a single landing table is to create a generic model in the sense reusability. So what happens is if you use multiple tables, landing tables, that is supported means you can technically create multiple landing tables for multiple source systems. But the problem is if you do that, then the maintenance cost and the reusability and maintenance, there will be a drop down in that. So that's the reason why Informatica suggests to go with a single landing table, and we are going to use a single landing table. So basically landing table is nothing but it's just a staging area where you cache the data, or you can say where you stage the data. That's the first place. You simply take the data from source systems and put it into your landing table. That's the first thing. Now basically before starting, there are three types of table. There are three types of table. One is a landing table, the second is a staging table, and the third is an base object. It's also a table, base object table. Sorry. So the landing table I just told you now. Now staging table is very similar to a landing table. Similar in the sense they are truncated load operations. Truncated load means every day you will load new data into the landing table and the staging tables, whereas base object is something that stores master data, or you can say permanent data. So in this architecture, in this example, the master data that is created, that is this Informatica MDM hub that you see here, that will be stored in the base object. Okay, that will be stored in the base object. It will be stored in the landing table only during the time of processing. It will be there in the staging table, the data, for the time of the processing. Okay, once the processing is done and when you start the processing in the next day, then basically these two tables, they are truncated and then new data is loaded. Whereas in base object, there's no concept of truncate load. It's permanent data. Okay, it's the master data. When we talk of an MDM software, this is the most important table, because this is the table that stores your master data. Okay, now see, from a landing table to base object, you have a table in middle, that is staging table. The Informatica has introduced this table in the middle uh, because of there are many things, many concepts. For example, raw, reject, there are many concepts that you learn now, because of which instead of directly creating the layer between landing table to base object, Informatica has introduced this table. Okay, so let's try to understand what is this staging table. Landing table and staging table are very similar tables, okay, but the first and the main difference between this is landing table. Okay, I'm just removing this because there's something important that I need to mention now. Shared table for all source systems. Okay, so landing table is nothing but it's a shared table for all the source systems. So in this example, we are having 3 source systems. So basically the landing table will be a single table, and all the data, that is the prepaid data, postpaid data and internet data, will be there in the landing table, differentiated by a column. Okay, so that's the concept. Now
Pavan,
uh,
I have a question here.
yeah, go ahead.
So the landing table will have only the fields that we have identified as a master data elements, right? Nothing more than that.
Correct, yeah. So the structure of landing table should be similar to that of the master data structure, but it's not mandatory, not important, not what you can say. It's not mandatory. You can also
Okay.
create landing table with 400 columns, let's say, and let's say your base object contains only 4 columns. That's also possible. But the Informatica suggests, and from my experience in all projects, you should always make the landing table structure similar to that of a base object. And
Hmm.
let's say your next question could be, what if my source contains data in a different data model? Let's say it's a normalized, or if it's in a transactional system. Let's say your data, source data, is there in 5 tables. Okay, and then let's say for one source system like CKR, your source data is there in 5 different tables, and for another source system, let's say MLO, your data is there in 2 tables. Okay, now what you do, what the concept is, you have to join these 5 tables to actually get the data, and here also you have to join these 2 tables to get the data, because the single tables are meaningless. Okay, you once you join,
Yes.
then only they are meaningful. So now how to deal with this? To deal with this, we are talking about an ETL tool. Okay, this is where ETL comes into picture. You use an ETL tool to join all these tables, and then the target of the ETL should be the landing table. Similarly here also, you use an ETL and the target should be the landing table.
Okay, so once the ETL loads the data into landing table, MDM has its own loading
Correct, that's correct. So
to software. Okay. And do we need to take into consideration the historical data from the source or just the latest one?
no, that's optional. If you want to take historical data, you can take it. I mean, that's version management, that's called as dynamic timeline in MDM. If you want to configure, I'll show you the option, you can configure. That's optional for you.
Okay.
If you want, you can maintain dynamic timeline, that is history, by just taking the data. You can do it, or else you can create version management in MDM itself. There are 2 ways you can do it. Okay,
So in general, MDM doesn't store historical data,
yeah,
right?
MDM does not store historical data. It
Only the latest
stores
one.
historical data only for addresses. For customer details and for contact details, there's no history, there's no concept of history, because we don't want any history for those. And yes, there's also by default there's a table name as his table, that is similar to the Watson management, where any changes to the table is tracked. But anyway, this is optional. Okay, when I configure the properties, I'll show you this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you must be clear completely by now that what is the role of ETL, or when I say ETL, it's Power Center ID, or you can say it's
Sunil?
data stage or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, Sunil, what is the rationale behind having a historical data only for addresses? Is there any rationale behind it?
The purpose is basically sometimes, see, first of all, it's not even useful. I mean, but in some cases, like call center applications, basically the MDM that you create, the master data will be used very actively by call center applications. Okay, so they sometimes to track customers, they would also like to store the old addresses. If there is any address change, they would like to store 4 or 5 old addresses as well. So basically, it's for that purpose. Okay, it doesn't serve any reporting purpose or anything.
Okay.
So that's why I said it's that's completely dependent upon the company. I mean, if they want to use it. The problem with his address management is, so see, a lot of people change addresses. For example, if your total addresses, if you're storing as, let's say, 4 million addresses, and if you use version management here, this will easily grow to around 16 million, because on an average a person will have around 3 4 address changes. So you must consider this number. If you really need version management, then you need to go with it. Otherwise you should this thing will actually slow down your performance, because see, MDM, Informatica MDM is implemented on either Oracle or DB2, or recently they started supporting MSS, that is Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, MS SQL Server. So the problem with all of these three databases is they are not, I mean, they are not huge. I mean, they are basically, Oracle is not a real data warehouse, or you can say it's a very uh, what you can say, tough database. Neither is DB2. DB2 is tough database, but still a lot of people implemented neither Oracle or SQL Server. So both of these, Oracle and SQL Server, are not that strong. Okay, they are not strong like your Teradata. So Teradata is a database that can handle like very huge load, whereas Oracle and DB2 are not like that. Okay, anyway, now so landing table, shared table for all source systems. So you must be completely clear. There should not be any doubt. Okay, now just the concept of staging table is, the staging table is, for every source we are going to have a staging table. For every source system we are going to have one staging table, so that's completely clear. For example, if we take this example, we are going to have three landing tables. We are going to have one landing table, and we are going to have one base object. But how many staging table we'll be having? We'll be having three staging tables. Let's say if the total number of source system is 50, then you are going to have one landing table, you are going to have one base object table, okay, and then you are going to have 50 staging tables. So staging table is the table that stores the data source wise. Okay, that stores the data source wise. Now let's, first of all, let's, before we understand why Informatica does it this way, that is why, what is the purpose of staging table, and why staging table stores the source data source wise, what's the reason? The reason is the definition of MDM itself. The definition of MDM is 360-degree angle. See, complete view or 360-degree angle. It means, let's say, let's consider a customer data model. Okay, in a customer, let's see, just remember that when we talk of MDM, 90 percentage of MDM implementations are customer implementation. Okay, so it is very important for you to understand customer implementation very like properly. I mean, in a correct manner. Okay, because when you are going to work for a project, you will see that most probably it will be customer domain only. Okay, now what is the definition of master data? What's master data? If you see master data here, the master data is, I told you that it's about consolidating, it's about identifying duplicates and then merging and creating the unique version of the truth. So that is fine. So this is master data that you see here. The first row that you see here, that's the master data. There are two concepts in a master data. First is the master data itself, and the second concept, this is also very important concept, that's the cross reference. Okay, cross reference. What is cross reference? See, just try to understand. If you cannot understand, then you can ask me. Okay, cross reference. Anyway, I'll be telling you about cross reference detail in details later when I load the data, but just try to understand. Okay, see, master data means, I already told you what's master data. So master data, what is master data? Master data is one row, or you can say one record per customer. So let's say Mr. Ajay, he's there in 10 different databases. So what is master data here? Master data is one Ajay, okay, sorry, one record per customer. Okay, so one record. So basically master data will contain one record for Mr. Ajay. That's the concept of master data. Okay, now but what is cross reference? Cross reference is one record for every source system. For a customer, it means this data that you see here, this prepaid database, this postpaid database, and internet database, all this information will be stored in the cross reference as duplicate values. Okay, so what is the purpose of storing the duplicates? Because duplicates we already have it in source, so what's the point of again storing these duplicates in your MDM? Let's try to understand how this cross reference actually helps. Okay, see, for example, I'll just give a very simple telecom example. Okay, let's consider a finance example. That's very easy. Okay, let's consider a finance, banking or insurance example where MDM is implemented. So let's say a customer has taken a credit card, and let's say his name is Sunil. Okay, and let's say he has given his phone number. This is his phone number he has given when he has taken the credit card, and let's say the address is XYZ. Now later, let's say after, and this is the scenario in 2013, let's say. So later he applies for an home loan. Okay, so his name, let's say he has given a Sunil K. It's not same as the earlier name. There's a slight difference, and he has given the phone number as something like this. Okay, and address is ABC 2015. Now let's say this is the scenario in 2013, and this is the scenario in 2015. So let's say Sunil has taken a credit card in 2013, but because of some financial reasons he could not repay the bank. So basically he's a defaulter. He's a defaulter now, and because of some reasons he did not want to continue communication with the bank, or so that what he had done is later he has changed his address, he has changed his phone number, but he did not communicate that to the bank because of multiple reasons. Okay, he did not communicate the same thing to the bank. Okay, now but later, let's say we are talking about Bank of America. Okay, it's a single bank. Later he applies for a home loan. Okay, when he applies for a home loan, then he must give the phone number, his correct phone number he has to give, because verification will happen, and he has given his correct addresses. Okay, now let's try to understand what is the role of master data and what is master data. Master data is about integrating these two source systems and creating a unique version of truth. So master data is about identifying the customer, identifying Sunil, I would say here, identifying Sunil and creating one record for Sunil, one BVT. I'll say what is BVT later. BVT for Sunil. That is master data here. Okay, so what is master data here? Master data means either, let's say, the name, depending upon the configuration, let's say the name Sunil K was taken in the master data, and let's say this phone number, let's say this is the phone number and this is the address that was taken in the master data, because that is more trustworthy. Let's assume. Okay, now what is cross reference here? Cross reference means, see, this is the master data, this will be stored. Now cross reference information will store that Sunil has taken a credit card and Sunil has taken a home loan. That is master, that is a cross reference. For example, this data here will be stored in the cross reference. So what is the advantage of the cross reference now? The advantage is, let's say I have a question, let's say the credit card department has a question. They want to know the contact details, that is a phone number, contact and address of Sunil in home loan department. See, just try to understand. The credit card database is a separate team, okay, and the home loan team is a separate team. So there is a separate, the IT department for credit card is different, the IT department for home loan is again different. Okay, now the credit card department has a question. They want to track this customer, they want to track Mr. Sunil because he has defaulted on the card, but the details, the contact details and the address detail that they have in their database is old and it's not working. Okay, so it's invalid contact, but they want to find out the contact details of the same customer in a different database. So what they have to do is, they would have to join this master data with the cross reference. They would have to join the master data with the cross reference. Then they can easily find out, yes, this is the phone number of the customer in the home loan department. So this is one example of cross reference. And what is the need of cross reference? See, master data is important, but cross reference is equally important. Okay, cross reference is also very important, because through cross reference only you are able to identify how many products a particular customer has taken, or how many stores are there in your store domain, or how many locations your business is into. Okay, so that is the concept of cross reference.
Sunil, Amit here.
Yeah, Amit.
In this particular case, if they want to, for example, catch this person, Sunil, then there must be a unique record like passport number or driving license. There must be there. Then they are able to relate that master record with the cross-reference tables.
No.
Otherwise, how they can
The
track?
cross reference, the master record and the cross reference are tables in Informatica MDM, and the join key is a system generated key, that is row ID underscore object, that is there in here, and the row ID underscore object is also there in the cross reference. So this will be joined with this. It's not necessary that you need to have a unique ID like your SSN number or any number. Okay.
Yeah, but Sunil, but that is after the reconciliation, right? Once the master data is reconciled with
Correct.
all the cross-reference data.
Correct.
I mean, but the question is, how are you going to reconcile it?
Reconcile will happen based on the match and merge rules that you need to configure. So their ID, if you have ID columns, then that is good, but normally you will not have ID columns in all the source systems. So you would have to configure that using stating that if the name of the person is same, or if the date of birth, gender is same. For example, I'll just show you. That is called as the matching. Okay, so you have to create a matching rule stating that, let's say, if the name and if the address and if the date of birth and gender of two customers are same, then they will be considered as the same customer. That is the way of identifying.
I mean, okay, and in some cases, like, do we need to manually intervene and verify those data to make sure that Because I mean, you write a code, but
Correct.
that code might not be able to
Yeah.
identify it, right?
Yeah. First, understand
Do we
that.
need a manual?
Correct. Correct. What you're asking is very good question. See, matching is a very recursive process. Matching is a very recursive process. When I say recursive process, then it means that you need to do it repeatedly. So what you said is, let's say I create this set of rules, then I'll run few customers, execute, then I need to manually verify that my rules are working properly or not. Properly means there are two things that should not happen, that you should avoid. That is over matching. Sorry, first of all, it's under matching. Second one is over matching. Under matching means you expect two customers to be same, but your system says that they are different. Okay. And over matching means you say that these two customers, they are not same, they look similar but they are not same, but your system, what it is doing is it is matching these customers, and your system is saying that these two customers are same. That's called as over matching. These two things, okay, these two things will always be there in your MDM. Your challenge as a developer should be to make a balance between these two. Your role as a developer is to stay in here somewhere. Okay, to you want to stay here. You want to make sure that under matching is not happening, over matching is not happening. But remember, this will always happen. Always happen means, let's say if you have loaded 18k customers today, then this scenario might happen for 4 or 5 customers. You must monitor that daily, and then you must try to fine tune these rules. For example, let's say this rule, based on this certain set of criteria, if your system is going for over matching, then you might want to add another id column here, some other id column, depending upon the requirement. That will reduce the thing. Okay, so matching is a very recursive process. You need to monitor it manually. Initially, when you want to create the MDM, you must monitor it very carefully and manually. But once the matching is stabilized, that will take almost like 6 months to around 2 3 years. I have seen projects where the total matching rules, stabilization of the matching rule, took around 4 years also. Okay, so that's fine, that's normal. Okay, because that thing also depends upon the quality of data that you have. If it's very bad, then you are going to see this very often. If your data quality is bit normal or it's okay, then you will not see this that often. Okay.
Hi, Sunil. So in one sentence, can we say the XREF table is you can use to join the source data to the master data
Correct.
using
Yeah.
OID object, right?
Correct. But remember one thing, what I said here, the definition, one record for every source system for a customer. Okay, it means, let's say here, what happens, let's say in the home loan department, let's say the name changes to Sunil K M. Okay, let's say the name changes from Sunil K M. So what is the impact in the cross reference? The impact is this also changes to KM. But do not think that an additional row will be created.
Okay.
Clear, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's one master data means one row per customer, and cross reference means it's one row per customer for every source. Okay.
Okay.
No need to worry about this. Just try to understand it theoretically, because when we load the data, then you'll understand how this works.
These are usually automatically taken care by
Yeah,
MDM,
that's
right?
correct. Yeah, that's again a good question.
Okay.
And you do not need to worry about this. Just the thing is, you need to understand the concept.
The
The
concept.
cross
Yes.
reference is completely automatic. There's no manual intervention needed. Or let's say, even if you want to do any manual intervention, you cannot do it. So system automatically does it for you. When you load the master data, master table, that is the base object, so automatically the cross reference will be loaded by Informatica. You no need to worry about that. Okay, so now let's go back to the staging table. Now let's try to understand the why staging table needs to differentiate the data source wise. That is why this concept of source wise is made. The concept is basically because to meet this requirement. Because see, if the system Informatica MDM does not identify data source wise, then how it is going to create the cross reference? This cross reference can only be created if MDM knows that this data is coming from this source system and this data is coming from this source system and all that. Okay, and that happens in the staging table. In the staging table, you will see that for every source system, you are going to have one staging table. Okay, so that is the place where data is differentiated source wise. See, just try to understand these concepts theoretically. If you cannot understand, no need to worry, because this is the architecture class where we are trying to cover all the things on a high level basis. Okay, so anyway, we'll be covering all of these details later when we jump to the respective classes. When we jump to the landing table class, there you'll understand this concept completely. Okay, and when we jump to the respective classes, then you'll understand. Now the data load from a landing table to the staging table. See, remember, landing table and staging table are the two tables that are internal to Informatica MDM. So when I say internal to Informatica MDM, it means this is inside Informatica MDM. Okay, for example, the source system, when I say the source system is not a part of Informatica MDM, but landing table and staging table are part of Informatica MDM. So basically they are tables, they are RDBMS, relational tables, Oracle tables. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, understand here is the loading from landing table to the staging table will happen in MDM. Okay, not outside. This will happen in MDM, and there are three things. Sorry, there are four things that are involved. That is delta detection, cleansing, the raw, and the reject. The four, all of these four are optional. Optional means if you want, you can directly drag the data from the landing table and put it into the staging table. You might want to skip all of this: delta detection, cleansing, raw, reject. Okay, so that is optional, but you will normally always go with cleansing. Okay, and sometimes you might want to go with raw, reject, and delta detection. So let's try to understand these options one by one. Cleansing, delta detection, raw, reject. First, let's start with cleansing. What is cleansing? Sorry. Cleansing means, one second, why this is hanging? Okay, see, cleansing means basically cleaning the data. So when you clean your home, right, so that's the cleaning, that's the cleansing. Cleansing means, that's what it means. Technically speaking, cleansing, when you talk about cleansing, a lot of things are involved here. For example, it could be standardization, it could be validation, it could be enrichment, and it could be actual cleansing, that is cleaning the data. Okay, let's try to understand these concepts, and all of these things are actually part of cleansing that happens when you load data from a landing table to the staging table. I'll just show you technically how a mapping looks like so that you can correlate. And see, the mapping is a concept which loads data from the landing table to the staging table. In technically MDM, we call that as mapping, and this is how it looks like. We are going to create later, but I'm showing you from the previous classes. Okay, this is just a mapping. This is the landing table, this is the staging table, and these are the different cleansing. So this is nothing but different types of cleansing that are used to clean the data. Okay, so that I just showed you so that you can correlate and you can easily understand. Okay, now there are many concepts that are inside the cleansing. The first concept is standardization, validation, enrichment, cleansing, actual cleansing. What is standardization? Standardization is very simple. Standardization means, let's say the name of US. In people, a lot of people say US, a lot of people say USA, A lot of people say America, a lot of people say United States of America. So America, US has many names, okay, but basically we are referring to the same country when we say US or USA or America. So the problem here is in MDM we have to decide which country we are going to store. That is, we have to decide, the architect has to decide that we want to go with US or we want to go with USA or America. It's not possible to go with all the country names. I mean, it's possible, but we don't want to do that because that's not the purpose of master data. So let's say your organization decides that they want to go with this name, USA for America. Okay, so let's say for a source system, you're getting the name as America. Now your MDM is not going to accept this America because it accepts only USA. So what you have to do is you have to standardize this data into USA. That is, you have to convert this, rewrite this into USA. That is one example of standardization, and this can also be an example of enrichment. Enrichment is also similar, very similar to standardization. There are only some places where enrichment is a bit different, but as of now just think that enrichment and standardization are same things. That's an example of enrichment. Validation is very simple. Validation means, let's say your email ID, what I can say, let's say let's your name, okay, let's say you're getting this name from your source. So you do not want to store this name in MDM because this is alphanumeric. A name should never be alphanumeric, should be an string only. It should never be alphanumeric. So this is invalid. Okay, so this is about validation. Validation means you validate this and you say that this is either valid, invalid, or it's a warning. Okay, that's the simple example of validation. And let's say country name. So let's say country name, you are getting this as your country name, let's say. So this country does not exist because there's no country like this, okay, in the world. So you must validate this to understand that this particular country name is actually invalid. That's the concept of validation. Validation means you validate it, you make sure that the data that is coming in your MDM is actually correct. It's actually up to the standards. That's about validation. Enrichment, I'll tell you about enrichment, what's the difference between enrichment and standardization later, but as of now just think that they are similar only. And cleansing is about cleaning. For example, this data will be converted into Sunil, that is these characters and other patterns that are there in the data will be removed and the data will be rectified. That's the concept of cleansing. Okay, and we do the cleansing using this technology, this cleanse functions. Technically in MDM, the method that is used to clean the data is called as cleanse functions. There are many types of cleanse functions that we are going to learn in the fourth class, probably, or fourth, or the sorry, not fourth. In the sixth class, we are going to learn about the mapping, how to create these mappings and all that. Okay, so, and that happens when you load the data from the landing table to the staging table. Remember, the concept of mapping and cleansing is only when you load data from the landing table to the staging table. Once data has been loaded into the staging table, in this process, that is from any of this process in the future, that is from the staging to the base object or from here to here, anywhere, there is no concept of cleansing and matching anymore. Sorry, there is no concept of cleansing anymore or mappings anymore. It's only in landing to the staging table. That's the only place where cleansing is involved. Okay, so what we'll do is I have to finish the class quickly because I have another session at 9. So we'll take off from delta detection, raw reject. Tomorrow we'll start from here and we'll try to complete this diagram. So we have some 5 minutes something. that is reserved for doubts. If you have any doubts, you go ahead and you ask me. Okay, you can unmute your mic and you can directly ask me.
Hi, Sunil. So, like, in order to design the cleansing validation rule, we have to profile the data, the source data, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'll talk about that tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay.
Just 1 second. We'll talk about this. That is how the requirement starts up, how the client, then the data steward, and how the profiling is done, and ETL and landing. I'll also show you the sample profile report. Okay, so you can understand that. But that's
Okay.
probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions anyone has?
Hello, Sunil. This is Amit.
Yeah, Amit.
Hello. Sunil, this is my first class. So I have worked on Informatica 9.1 version, right?
Uh-huh.
And Informatica Power Center. So because that particular ETL and this particular stuff for Informatica MDM, I was looking for just a question because I never find any training. I think good training in Informatica MDM. I never find any Informatica MDM because I have Informatica Power Center. I can in my laptop installed, and so I can use it. But what about Informatica MDM? We don't have any practice sessions if you want to do in Informatica MDM. So is that possible?
Yes, I mean, because there's no point in training if you do not get lab access, because it's important that
Mm,
whenever, say, after the third class or after the second class, you need access to the lab, and you will
mm,
get this lab access via this VPN. You can see these people are connected online. So
mhm.
you have to log in into this VPN tool. I'll send you the details of configuring this later. Then you can start accessing this tool from your desktop.
Okay, this means that I have to access via VPN. It's
Yeah.
not possible to install in my laptop like Informatica Power Center.
No, no.
That
This
is not
software,
possible
this
in my.
software cannot be installed in individual workstations. This needs at least 8 GB of RAM.
Okay. Okay.
So this is more like a install on a server, and we can access the server
Yeah,
from
yeah,
our
that's correct.
browser, right?
Install on a server.
Okay.
You try to install it in your physical machine, let's say in your laptop as well. If you do it successfully also, still after few days, you will see that this grows up very, very large. For example, I just installed it in my machine, this machine, and later this machine hang up. So I created a separate server. So even this machine that I'm accessing here, this MDM, it's in a separate physical location. It's not here. It's not this desktop that you see here.
Uh-huh.
It's not this desktop, because the system simply hangs up if you after some point of time.
So
So
usually we access this hub server console using a browser, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it's a browser. I mean, once you have the VPN, for example, this the machine, it's installed in this machine. Okay, so you take this machine and just say, just when you type this, then if you click on this, then this tool will be launched.
Okay, got it.
It's a thin client tool, so launched via browser.
Okay, it's a version 10. Okay.
Yeah, version 10, that's the latest.
Yes. Okay.
this is also because we have to use Trillium servers like for the cleans matching engines. Normally we use Trillium servers.
You
No,
can
that
use Trillium, Data Director, SAP, XI
right,
services,
right.
Address Doctor, IDQ. There are many options, but they are all optional and additional. I mean, they do not come up with this product by default.
Because for cleans matchup servers, we use two servers for that particular. We have, if one
Yeah,
is down, then second will come up
yeah,
like
that's the
that.
concept
And
of the cleanse or the process server, you can uh, where you can configure multiple process cleanse match servers to either process it in a faster manner or to store it as a, what you can say, backup node.
so it
Sunil,
should be covered in this particular course, that particular
Yeah, I'll
cleans
tell you that.
matchup server.
Yeah,
Sunil,
yeah, Venkat.
yeah, I mean, address doctor is is a cleansing tool, or what is the purpose of address doctor?
I'll tell you address doctor. It's there in here. You can see that address doctor. It's just very simple. Okay, address doctor is basically to validate the address. Okay, so basically, let's say you can also go to Google, and if you type address doctor and say test, just type address doctor. So address doctor was a separate company, but Informatica recently acquired it. Okay, so but do not confuse Informatica with address doctor. It's a separate product. Basically what it does is it validates the address. For example, if you're in Texas, okay, so house number Texas, this that, if you give that, then Informatica will say that if this is valid or not. So basically we use it as a cleanse function in MDM. For example, here
Okay.
use it as a cleanse function in MDM, but the purpose remains the same. That's just to validate the address.
Is it a part of MDM, or is it a part? Is
No,
it a
that's what
different
I'm
tool
saying.
altogether?
This is a completely separate tool, and by default, it's not.
Okay.
It's not. It doesn't comes up with the product. This you are seeing here because this was configured. Okay, by default, you will not see anything. For example, if you log in this repository, you will not see anything named address doctor here.
Yeah. Why I am asking is basically in my present project we have address doctor. So
yeah, address doctor it's a separate product that can be used with IDQ or MDM. It's also used with IDQ.
Okay. Probably it's used with IDQ. Okay.
Yeah, with IDQ.
Exactly.
So you were mentioning about IDQ, right? Does IDQ come part of the cleanse function?
IDQ, yeah, not comes as a part. Again, that's an additional functionality. For example, I'll just show you. If you want, you can integrate IDQ cleansing with MDM. That I'll tell you when I go about cleanse functions. When I go there, then I'll tell you how to do that.
Okay, so it can be part of the cleanse function. Also, it can be separate, completely separate product.
Yeah. See, IDQ is a separate product. MDM is a separate product. But if you want to integrate these two, you can do that. But it's not mandatory to use IDQ with MDM. And IDQ is also expensive. I mean, it's not. I'm not talking about the software. I'm talking about maintaining. You need a lot of resources to maintain a IDQ project.
So what is an IDQ? Is it like a data profiler, or is it?
I'll tell you because now if we start, actually already I have a class at 9. So I'll tell you tomorrow what's IDQ and what is ETL, what is IDQ and what is MDM, and we'll see why cleansing needs to be done in either MDM, IDQ, or why not in MDM. We'll understand that tomorrow.
Okay.
Sunil, this particular class, the organizer tell me that 1 hour per day class for 30 days, right?
Correct, yeah.
30 hours.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, guys, then we'll drop off for today. We'll meet tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.